Today's guest is someone who brings both artistry and strategy to the world of branding and does it with a level of excellence that's rare to find. Caitlin Lang is a seasoned brand strategist and web designer with over 20 years of experience and the founder of Liquid Form Design, where she creates elevated premium brands for women who are at the top of their game, coaches, consultants, and solopreneurs who are ready to step into their next level. Her work is rooted in a powerful belief that money equals power and freedom. And when women build wealth, they create a massive ripple effect for good. That's why Caitlin is so passionate about helping her clients design brands that not only reflect their expertise, but also empower them to raise their rates, sell with more confidence, and build the business and life they really want. So, in today's conversation, we're diving into the power of your website and how the branding process itself can bring complete clarity, confidence, and the momentum to show up as the expert you are while attracting more of the right fit people to your world. So, Caitlin, thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
So, rewinding a little bit, what did your own evolution look like as a designer and a strategist, and just how it worked into your life in general, right? I know you're a mom, and business and personal life often come together. So, just share more about your background and your story with us.
So I have been working as a designer since 1999. I got my first design job out of college in 1999. How many years? 26 years, which is crazy. I don't feel that old. But I got my first design job with a photography portfolio and started, I think, as a lot of designers do, just as being the hands and being directed by the client and without any thought about strategy. And it was mostly about making things look pretty. And even after I went to grad school for design, where we talked a lot about design with a capital D and some version of strategy, but was much more based in theory. And so it wasn't really until recently that I started getting more into strategic design. I think that so many designers are really focused on the aesthetics, and I like to go deeper than that. It's been a long evolution, and I spent a lot of years doing retainers for a couple fashion brands. I was in a sort of maternity niche for a while, and my last retainer ended in 2023. Well, let me back up even further. Want to talk about motherhood for a second? I had a
Yes, yes, yes. Please do all the things. We like to
okay, yeah.
share all of it.
Yeah, I feel like I need to talk about this for a minute. My son is turning 18 this fall. So I've been in deep reflective mode about working motherhood and what that means also. And I have some, I don't know, I hate to say regret, but I feel some sadness and grief about not appreciating motherhood enough when my son was little. And part of it was because I was working and I was working in my business and I had a partner who wasn't around. He was very focused on his own career. And I had been in my business for a while already. And I had a big retainer that was keeping me really busy. And it was just too hard. When my son entered elementary school was when the shit really hit the fan, because I think in preschool, he was there long hours. I just had more support. And when he started elementary school and it got out earlier, also, elementary schools are closed all the time. I don't understand why they're always closed. There's always a holiday. There's always a professional development day, and he's always sick. And I only have one. You have what, four? I mean, I don't even know how you how you
What's
do it.
one more, right?
I had one, and I was just drowning. And I was working during the day, but also doing drop off and pick up, and having to do all the grocery shopping and making dinner and the laundry. And there weren't enough hours in the day, and I was working late at night. And I ended up taking a step back from my career for a few years, starting when my son was, I think, midway through kindergarten. I hardly worked for most of when he was in elementary school. And when he was in fifth grade, I realized I needed to get divorced. I had hardly made money for years. The year before deciding to get divorced, I made $2,000. I did one really small project. And I remember I made $2,000 and I thought, oh my God, how can I get divorced if I can't support myself? But thank God I had a business. There are a lot of women who never even had a career, who had their babies when they just had a job and didn't have anything they could go back to. So I am really relieved that I had something I could go back to when I knew it was time to make money. But it was terrifying. Wasn't sure I could do it. And my friend just happened to have, she's a coach, and she just happened to have a goal setting workshop. I remember it was January of 2019. And I went to her goal setting workshop and I made this impossible financial goal for the year. And it felt absolutely impossible but she had this whole framework for how to achieve it. I loved so much of it. It was thinking about what type of person could achieve this goal. Is there someone that you know who achieves this goal? What do they have that you think you don't have? But why do you think they can do it? And then writing out a list of 10 concrete steps to get there. And what was so helpful about that is that as I was going through my list through that first part of the year, if something didn't work out, it's like, oh, well, I have something else on my list. I'm going to go do that now. And it really kept my morale up. And then, of course, as time went on, I had more ideas for things I could do. And by June, I had made so much money that I was like, oh, I can do this. I can get divorced. So
That's amazing.
I'd still is amazing. And I'm so grateful to this friend for helping me in those first few months. So yeah, so I got divorced in the middle of 2019. And my son, this is also what's so wild. I have meetings this afternoon with two women who have babies and they have businesses and they're trying to figure it out. And the whole cliche about the long days, short years is so true because it like all those years felt so hard. And then all of a sudden my son was 11, 12, didn't need me in the same way anymore. And then I could really go hard on my career again. And my business was still there. And it felt like I was so resentful of having to put on ice for a few years. And then I was able to go back to it. And it was not only still there, but I was able to rebuild it stronger than ever. I mean, I'm 48 now. I still have a lot more years of my career to go. I took time off and I still have a lot more years to go. So I think it's something else for younger working moms to think about is like it feels so hard and it feels I don't know if you have to take a little bit of a break or if you have to work less for a while. There's still so many years to come back to it. I regret some resentment I felt about working motherhood, but I don't regret any second that I spent with my kid and being more present for him.
Thank you so much for sharing that because the real stuff, right? Like the messy, hard things, sometimes I don't think are talked about as much. And so getting that perspective and seeing where you came from, I think really means a lot. And I've been struggling with this a little bit too because my kids are younger. They're 8, twins are 7, and my youngest is 3. Like you said, either someone's sick or daycare cancels or school's out or like there's never a freaking normal week. And I was just like, I just need 1 week that is normal. This summer has been crazy. And I want to spend time with my youngest because next year is going to school and then they'll all be in school. Like, no matter what, I think as moms, there's just this guilt there that shouldn't be. But also, like, giving ourselves the space and grace to, like, as long as you are there for your children in the best way that you know how, you're showing up and make sure that it's aligned. And that's how I'm trying to, like, now go back and look at my business. Like, is this really aligned with how I can show up and best serve the women that I am here to serve, but also be present with my family? And there's never like this perfect balance that we're trying to find. I think sometimes that's just a myth, but like, how can we make it work? Just not trying not to have that guilt and just like know we're making the right decisions. And if not, like shift and adjust and be flexible because just shit's gonna happen all the time. And so
Absolutely.
the best way that we can also, like, find the people around us who can support us. Like, I don't know what I would do without all of our family. Like, we are very lucky and blessed to have so much family around us that, like, can pick up when we can't. So
That's great.
that's been helpful, but thank you for sharing that because I think it really brings so much into perspective. And even now, you have so much time to put the pedal on the gas if you want to. Like you get to decide, you are in charge of what you want to do moving forward. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And it's one of the really fun things about working entirely with women is because most of the women I work with are moms. They're either leaving a corporate job because they want to have more flexibility and want to be able to spend more time with their kids, or just want to have more control over their calendar, or they're older and their kids are older and they're more where I am in my life, where their kids don't need them as much, or they've even left the nest and they have really have the time and the energy to go hard on their business. But at the same time, having control over their calendar, it's almost the opposite thing where it's like some people want to take the foot off the gas a little bit because of where their kids are. And some people want to put their foot on the gas more because of where their kids are. And I think it's a really interesting thing. And being self-employed, I mean, being self-employed is such a double-edged sword, but it is one of the beautiful things, for better or worse, is you do, it all depends on you. So there's a lot of pressure there, but also means you do have a lot more control over how you spend your time.
All these things have been swirling in my head the last few days of like, I keep coming back to because yes, it can get really freaking hard.
Yeah.
I think this year for me has just, I don't know what's happening in the universe, but it has been a hard year. And I keep
Mhm.
coming back to, but if I didn't have this, I would not have the freedom and flexibility in my calendar to be able to do the things that we want to do with our family. And
Yeah.
when I have to pick up or drop off, or I just get to be there and we have slow mornings and it's not like total chaos. I mean, it's still definitely chaos when there's 4 children involved,
Yeah.
but
And it's real.
you just get that freedom and that flexibility. Everyone can be at a different stage. I think that brings me to the next thing is, we both work mostly with women, mostly with moms. And sometimes, most of the time, they're amazing at what they do. But they really struggle to articulate their value and to like show up and be confident in saying this.
Yeah.
So I would love to get your perspective on what you think happens when maybe something like their brand looks polished, but their message isn't really dialed in, or they don't feel like they can show up in a certain way. What's your process for helping bring those into alignment?
Yeah, there's a saying I love. It's really hard to read the label from inside the bottle. So for anyone, it's really hard to look at yourself objectively. And, I didn't have a proper website with real copy for 20 years because I didn't want to also just like take the time to be introspective and think about what do I really want? Who am I really serving? It was easier just to put up pretty pictures of my work and not actually have to think about it. Forcing yourself to think about it is hard, step one.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then step two, to actually see yourself clearly. And I think that women do have a tendency to undersell themselves, do have a tendency to make themselves smaller. It's much harder for women to hype themselves up. And so to have someone on the outside see them more clearly, I think is really helpful. And you must find this too in your work. But one of the things that I do that's so helpful and that has also taken me out of the role of just being the hands, but to being more of a strategic partner with my clients is I start every branding project with something I call the branding roadmap. So I do a 90-minute interview where I go deep on where my clients have been, where they are now, where they want to go. And I'll also ask a lot of questions about, what are your target clients' pain points? What's the emotion that they're feeling when they reach out to you? What are they feeling before they work with you? How do you make them feel after? What's the transformation they experience? And asking all those sorts of questions. And also, how do you want to be perceived? How do you not want to be perceived? All of those sorts of questions are sort of a backdoor way into getting into what makes them unique? What's their unique value? What are their strongest selling points? And so without having to just say, what makes you awesome? Which is really hard to say, wait, this is why I'm so great. It's a way to get to there through a back door. It's always a really fun conversation and often they aren't sure at first and we have to talk it out. And it's why I do it over a call instead of in a questionnaire, because sometimes we have to tease it out a little bit. I have to ask follow-up questions and they have to think about it. And it can be a really fun conversation.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I do that with my clients as well because it's hard to see from the outside in. And I struggle with this in my business is it's just like I can do this all day long for the women I serve. But for me, it's
Yeah.
really freaking hard.
Yeah. I had to hire a coach to help me with my website messaging when I first did it a few years ago. I couldn't do it on my own.
Yeah, and just looking at how everything aligns into an ecosystem. And I feel like I've added on the podcast and the networking group and all the things, and it's starting to feel discombobulated. So I've been working with someone to like, okay, now how do I bring this back into alignment? Well, they're all targeted at the same person. To me, on the inside, it feels like a jumbled mess. And maybe on the outside, it doesn't, but I want it to feel clear so that I feel confident showing up. And I find that with a lot of the women I work with too, and I'm sure you do as well. Like once we have it all aligned and their message is really clear,
Mhm.
kind of can boost that confidence and allow them to move forward. Do you see that too?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I help people do is connect the dots and connect the threads. And so you have a mission, you have all these things you want to do. And what's the common through line in what you're doing and in the results that you're delivering for your clients and helping them figure out how to talk about their services so that they can show up consistently wherever they are. So whether that's on the website, their messaging says one thing on the website, but then they're also able to talk about it at a networking event. And then their LinkedIn also is saying something similar, but helping them really cement that messaging and being consistent across all their platforms, like you were just saying, is so important. And part of my job, being on the outside of the bottle, looking at it, is I can see all those connections and help them make them. And then, yeah, it's true that once you're confident in your messaging, you're confident in who you're serving, what the value that you're providing, what you're doing for your clients, you're able to show up with more confidence, which translates into more sales. It just makes, because if you're showing up and you're like, oh, I'm embarrassed to share my website and I don't really know how to talk about myself, and you're not projecting the confident energy that's necessary for B2B sales. It's impossible if you don't feel good about all those different pieces fitting together.
Yes, because the people on the other side of the computer, or if you're in person, like they can feel that energy.
Yeah.
And I have seen so much that once people launch their new website or they feel really good about their message, it just does something amazing for their confidence. I don't even know how to explain it, but they really start being able to show up as powerful as they can be. And,
Yeah.
as simple as something as people might think a website is, like it can do a lot for you and your business.
Absolutely. And the number of women who say to me, don't look at my website. I'm so embarrassed by my website. It's just like, why even have one then? Like, if you just don't have one, if you're embarrassed to share it, people don't want to buy from people who don't seem confident. And there is something so powerful when you feel proud of all of your branded materials. You feel proud of your website. You feel proud of your messaging. You feel it's like wearing a great outfit walking into a room where you stand a little taller. I did a project recently with a woman, and I work in sprints. So I do a whole brand in a couple of weeks on my end and just usually 3 days with the client. And we were just on day 2. And so we were still fine tuning, but the look and feel of the brand was established. Most of the site was done. And she went to an event where she was speaking. And she said, even without the website being live, just knowing that it existed and the new brand existed, she walked in a little taller and walked in feeling more confident, just knowing that she was about to have this incredible new brand that she felt like really represented her and represented her authority and her expertise.
Caitlin, I do love your process. I think you have like just being able to present like an entire new brand and a website in just a few weeks and only with a little bit of your client's time is like incredibly powerful. Everything is so fast moving now, right? And oftentimes the business owner is working on 12 million other things. And that's why I think websites tend to be last because it can get pushed to the side. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your process. We have the 90-minute strategy call, which I love. I do that with my clients too. I also send a questionnaire, but we go deeper into it because, like you said, they're usually like, this is really hard. Like, I don't normally think about these things for my business. This is hard. But that's why we walk through it together. So I'd love for you to share more just then, like how you really get that clarity and help them bring their brand to life.
Yeah, the reason I work the way I do in sprints is because women are busy. We don't have time. I don't want people to have homework. I don't want to waste anyone's time. There's nothing worse than a project drawing on for months and you have to go back through your emails and be like, wait, what did we talk about? Like, I don't want to waste anyone's time with any of that stuff. So part of what I'm doing is I'm selling ease because I just know that all my clients are busy. They don't have time for any bullshit. And one of the other huge changes that I made is I started writing all the copy because I think it's just, as you know, the words are so important. And I like to do work holistically. So I never will design a logo by itself because a logo will never live by itself. So I don't want to design it that way. A lot of designers will start by designing the logo as the first step. And I can't do that because I need to know how's it going to look on the website? How's it going to look in the LinkedIn banner? How's it going to look everywhere? How's it going to look with all the colors? I actually start with the words. I start with the copy because like I said, with my branding roadmap, we need to get to what is your unique value proposition and how are you going to connect with your potential clients on an emotional level? How are you going to show that you understand what they're going through, that you understand their pain and you can be a real painkiller and not just a band-aid. And so I start with the words. And then as I'm designing the site, the words kind of shift sometimes because I'll start thinking about these visuals because of these words, but now the words need to change a little bit because I'm going in this other direction where, maybe we want to emphasize this other part of the messaging more. And so it's all working together. And that's been really fun and gratifying to work that way instead of trying to force words into a design or not even, I feel like, in the beginning of my career, I didn't pay attention to the words at all. It just was it just sort of plastered on top of something pretty. And now that seems so crazy and embarrassing that I used to work that way.
And that brings me to something I wanted to talk about today is the right words with the right visuals can be really, really powerful. And also when you have really good words but not great design, it doesn't work as well. But when the two are combined, it can be so powerful. Just
Yeah.
giving the reader that experience, creating that emotion. Because as you know, people are making decisions based on emotion, not just
Yeah.
logical, but they have to connect emotionally,
Yeah.
especially now or for a higher ticket service. Like they have to really connect with you. And I think
Yeah.
your website has the power to do that.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it is one of the problems with a beautiful template because a beautiful template will only get you so far. We see so many websites that look the same. There are two that we see the most, I think. And we both work with a lot of coaches. So we see a lot of the same stuff. But there are two things that I see all the time. One is a picture of the person, and the headline just says, "Hi, I'm Caitlin." And
Yes.
then it says what I do. So I'm a graphic designer who makes pretty
Yeah.
things, but it's not saying anything about what my clients might need from me, the experience I'm creating. It's just, here I am and these are my features
Yeah.
instead of talking about any sort of benefits. And the other one is a really beautiful but generic nature photo with some, lofty, often the little word salady phrase that's supposed to be inspirational, but isn't actually saying anything concrete. And I think that's what happens when you work with templates because when they all start looking the same, they're not saying anything specific. They're not saying anything that's speaking directly to anyone. And so, yeah, if you're not working with someone who is focused on the words first, that's where you're going to end up.
Oh my gosh. I love that because, yes, those are two things I see all the time. And I'm like, we
Fine.
can fix this. We've got this.
I just did a poll on LinkedIn about whether you'd be willing to pay a lot of money for a service provider who has an obviously DIY website, whether it messes with your trust at all. One thing that came out of that, I think most people agree that therapists can get away with it, often have the same nature photography. But I don't know, I think we just don't expect anything different from therapists, so it's okay.
Right.
But other service providers, it gives me a little pause if you're not willing to invest in yourself. Why should I invest in you? I think that that's another thing that comes up for me. And I was actually surprised in the poll, the majority of people said that it did make a difference. I actually thought that more people would say they didn't care. I thought there'd actually be more people being like, no, I get it. A website isn't that important. But the vast majority of people really did feel like it impacted their confidence in a service provider if they had a obviously DIY website. It was interesting.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and look at that poll because that is very interesting to me. I definitely want to see that. So I need to go back and look at that one.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
going to do a whole post about it. And the comments were interesting too.
yes, I always love reading the comments. But I want to go back to something you said in like kind of that hero part, right? That I always say that's one of the most important spaces on your website. Like when somebody lands on there, they need to
Yeah.
know like what's in it for me, right? That
Yeah.
transformation. We have to sell to the transformation. And
Yeah.
you said it feels a little word salad, like it's not really actually saying anything.
Mhm.
And most of the time now that's what ChatGPT gives us. And
Yeah.
I work with ChatGPT every single day. I'm not saying I don't
Yeah.
have to know how to work with it, how to go back to it.
Yeah.
And actually just saying the simple, clear things that your people are saying, like the actual phrases, right? Like what are your people telling you that you want in the words they are using?
Yeah.
Just use that on your site. So how do you feel about that? Or what's your take on like just the language there that you're using, especially in that hero image?
I completely agree. And I went, of course, and looked at your site before this
Oh
call.
gosh. And I feel like I feel like my site needs some work too. So
No, but you're doing exactly what you just said, which I think is so important. Is it's straightforward. You say so. The headline is for the coach ready to grow a thriving community with messaging that inspires, connects, and converts. And it's so good because you're saying who you're speaking to, what you're going to give them, messaging that inspires, connects, and converts, and then the subhead, get the kind of words that effortlessly attract the people you're meant to serve. That's exactly what people want from you. So and it's so clear and you're not trying to be cute. I think sometimes I think you can be a little bit cute in the headline as long as the subhead is super clear. But I think people do like try too hard to be cute and clever. And then it's like, what are you even saying? Same with the navigation. I just want everything on a website to be really clear. Just use real straightforward words that everyone understands and don't try to be too clever with it. I think that's really important. So I always say you want to ideally say who you're speaking to. So like on my website, mine is actually pretty simple because I'm letting my visuals do a lot of the heavy lifting for me. But I say I'm doing branding for ambitious women. I'm just really clear. Like this is who I want to work with. I'm not fucking around. And like you're saying explicitly that you want to work with coaches. And I think it's really important to say who you want to work with and then what you're going to do for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that reassurance because I'm always like, I don't know why I struggle with my messaging. I know we talked about that, but
It's your own. And then the other thing I like to do, so that's the hero. And then the next thing I like to do is, and you do this, I think you do this too, is that I speak really briefly to a pain point, like what's keeping them up at night. And then I don't spend too long there, but then like, and this is why I'm the answer to why I'm the solution to your pain.
Yes, I love that you say that because I was actually just working through with a client. Sometimes I can get a little wordy because I'm writing and naturally I'd like to be able to tell a story and feel like the reader is moving throughout the page. But as you said, I start with where are they now? What are they experiencing? Where do we want to bring them? And why are you the perfect person to do that?
Yeah.
Instead of jumping, like you said, right to the, hi, I'm Hailey. This is what I do. You just have to meet them where they are and show why we are the guide to get them to where they.
Yeah. And do you follow Brand Story?
So I follow a little bit of Brand Story. And then I also took Anna Powers. She was a conversion copywriter. She had like a certification. So she kind of had her own formula. I do a little bit of both, but I definitely have followed all of Donald Miller's Story Brand and marketing,
Oh, Story Brand, right? Not Brand Story, Story Brand. Right.
all of his stuff too.
Yeah. I think it just makes so much sense. His whole idea is that the client is the hero and you're the guide, just for
Yes.
people who are listening who don't know. So even when I'm writing about page copy, I'm writing about the person's bio a little bit, but it's how does their bio serve their client still? So it's still not just here I am, this is how great I am, here's all my credentials. These are why my credentials matter to you. This is why my experience matters to you and what I can do for you with this experience. Not just I'm so fancy.
100%. And I've been saying that a lot too. Like, yes, your about page is about you, but it's really about the person you're here to serve. And I think people always ask me on the length, like, how long should this be? How long should each page be? And I think it differs based on who you're serving and what you're doing. Because sometimes with the more personal things, and when you're really like getting into people's most intimate spaces, like they really have to trust you. So how can you connect with them on the level that gets them to feel comfortable to book the call, to buy the thing, to do what you want them to take? So I'd love to get your perspective on that, even if it's different. Like, how do you feel about like length of copy and messaging?
I think the way that I like to do it, if I'm thinking of the scroll of a homepage, the first couple sections I like to keep as brief as possible. One of the things that I encounter with clients is I'll write like really great, snappy copy, and then they really want to get in there and explain more. And so there's also this sort of push pull with clients being like, hey, actually, I understand that you want to explain more, and more words are not going to make this better. But I try really hard to keep the first couple sections pretty minimal in copy to draw people in and not ask too much investment right out of the gate. And then once they're a little bit invested and interested, then the next couple sections, I think you can have more copy. So as you go down the page, I'll usually have more and more copies because I figure if you're still sticking around, you're interested, you're willing to take in a little bit more. I always use big headlines so that there's always a hierarchy. You can scan it quickly and then decide if you want it. Maybe I'll jump back up and read a little bit more here, read a little bit there, but knowing that people also aren't reading totally linearly. And so I like the site to be able to read on a few different levels where you can just scan the headlines and get a story. You maybe just read the first couple of brief sections to get a story. And then if you want more, then you can read the whole thing.
Yes, I was actually just saying that same thing yesterday is like everybody consumes content in different ways, right? Sometimes you have those fact finders who want to literally know every single thing about what you do and what you offer before they're ready to go and say yes. Some people are just scrolling and they're only going to look at the headlines or the bolded text. So we have to make sure that all of the messaging on your page and the copy on your page is meant to pull those in. So even if I am just going to read the headlines, and the bolded text, I'm understanding what the story is and still what they're doing. And so I love that you say that because I think your headlines are really important and the text that you're bolding, but that goes back to design too, right? You can't just have this like full page of the same size text because it's not going to resonate. They're only going to
Yeah.
stop if something piques their interest.
But Hailey, I have a question for you. So when you write website copy, how often are you working with the designer, or are you just handing off the copy and then hope for the best?
Yes. So it depends on who I'm working with. I have a couple of designers that I work with often. It's most of the time that the people have either already secured their website designer and they don't do the copy also. So then they go looking for a copywriter, or they're like, I will do this myself, which sometimes feels cringy to me based on their level of experience in design.
Sure.
And so I love when I know and have a good relationship with the website designer because then it also is my client doesn't have to play middleman in between, right? And then I get to understand the process of how it works. And I always say to the website designer, like, if this doesn't feel good to you or you think something needs to be changed, like please by all means reach out to me. I am not going to be offended. And I tell that to my clients too. So typically we do all the strategy. I interview their clients because I try to get the messaging from their clients and the words they are using in my process, write the copy, then they review it, make edits, and then it goes to the website designer. There's a new one I'm working with they're actually going to be on Shopify. So I'm like really new to that platform. So I'm going to be working more closely to necessarily like now fit my words into their design instead of the other way around.
Yeah, that's great. I worked with copywriters for packaging, but I somehow I've actually never worked with a professional copywriter on a website. It was always my clients writing the copy, which I was having to rewrite it so often, which is why I decided to just be like, never mind, I'm just
Yeah,
going to do it. Yeah.
exactly. And I was just talking with my coach and mentor on like that kind of that same thing of like the results are better when it looks really good and when it's implemented in the way that it should be implemented.
Yeah.
And so how do I like either make that part of my process or have, specific people like you? So I'd love to just go into that really quickly. So you do the website, you come out with it. And then a lot of times after that is where I find we have the website, all things good to go. And then we start working on like what are the offers they're launching, or sometimes it's a membership or a group program that they want to then have the sales page, right? Our long form sales page, the emails, like building the whole ecosystem. Do you do anything on that aspect? Or if it's where something like you have a client that does this, and then a lot of times, like I'm writing the copy, would it be something where like I send it to you, you can help, put that onto their website and then any of the graphics and images that go with it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't had any clients who, after the site's launched, then they have offers or sales pages. That hasn't come up. The email thing does come up, but yeah, they've always just wanted to do it themselves. So I'll usually just design the email template, and then they're so far managing their content themselves. I have referred a couple people out to full digital marketing experts who can really help them with all of their email, their social, like a really great one-stop shop that I know. This woman who runs a digital marketing firm in San Francisco, I've referred a few people to her because she can do all of those things, which is so great because again, like anything that's easy. But it's so interesting with Substack becoming such a big thing. I do wonder if more people are going to be doing more focused on content, but also needing more help. I would never handle all of that sort of content. So I would always want to refer out to someone like you to help with that sort of content. And then I could help with whatever visuals that go along with it. Because at that point, we've already established what the brand is, we've established the messaging. And so if there's someone who's helping with content, then it is more just applying the
Yeah.
brand
Yeah.
to all those other pieces.
Definitely. And I think that goes a long way too. And what I'm kind of helping some of the newer women in my program with is, once you get all, and I think you and I have talked about this too, but once they have all of this stuff built and ready to launch and go, it's not just build it and they will come, right? We have to do the work to get the website seen, to put out our lead magnet, to grow our email list, to really grow our audience and have people coming to the website. So
Yeah.
I know that's such an important part of the follow up, right? Like you have this beautiful website and it can do really powerful things, but you need to get people there and the right
Yes.
people there.
Yes. And it's hard. It's one of the things some people have asked me about ROI on a website. I'm like, I can't tell you an ROI because it's so much depends on you and how much you're willing to market yourself and how much you're willing to get out there. But I think some people think that marketing is a bigger deal than it is. I mean, for me, marketing is consistent posting on LinkedIn, email newsletter, and networking. And I'm able to fill my pipeline with those three marketing channels. And it's not ads. I think people sometimes think that marketing means ads, but often it can just be LinkedIn and email. But you have to tell people you're there and you have to tell people over and over again that you're there and keep driving people to your website.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because so many times I think in the beginning we try to be everywhere all the time, like on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and doing ads and networking everywhere, right? Where, like you said, you've been able to find those three things that work for you. And so when you can do those three things really well, you're going to be able to fill your pipeline. So I think the most important thing is like, where does it feel really good for you to show up?
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to allow you to be consistent and to enjoy it. And it's kind of the same for me where I'm like, I don't like social media. I like have a love-hate relationship with Facebook and Instagram, but recently I like LinkedIn. I don't like it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I not just putting my time and energy over there, nourishing those relationships? And I also feel like sometimes it's more like real conversations that are happening, which I really like. And then networking, like that's how you and I met. And, we've been connected for months. So
Yeah.
you can meet some really incredible people from showing up in the right spaces.
It's true. I love LinkedIn. I think it's the most social, like truly social of the social media platforms. And so much happens in the comments. I've made real friends there. It's wild. I've even taken some of those friendships offline. I'm doing a really big meetup with like 8 people in San Francisco in a couple of weeks that we almost all met on LinkedIn.
That's
And
amazing.
the only couple of them I've met so far in real life, but someone's coming in from New York. And so we're like, oh, we'll do a big thing. I love it so much. And especially for women entrepreneurs, it's an incredible community. It's super supportive. I learned so much by the women there. I've been really surprised by how much I love LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I think when you can focus on those actual relationships versus the algorithm and how many comments you get and all of that, it just naturally comes from that. Right.
Right.
And you're just focusing on showing up, being you, and building the relationships.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, and it's so fun. I commented on someone's post about Jimmy Kimmel the other day. And we had a back and forth in the comments. And then we took it to the DMs and got in this whole conversation about travel and our kids. And I think we're legit friends already. It's
Right.
so fun. Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. So this brings me to the very next and final thing that I always like to ask my listeners, but I know a lot has changed in life and business for you over the years. And so often we're chasing someone else's version of success rather than our own. So, what does success look like for you now?
I've talked about this a lot, but I worked with a coach in 2020, about a year after my divorce when I was rebuilding my business. And I came to her with a financial goal. And she was like, no, no, no. Take a step back. What are your adjective goals? How do you want your life to look? She sent me this thing in a questionnaire and I couldn't do it. This living where we had to actually do it live because I was like, I don't know what I want my life to look like. I really had to talk it out. But she helped me come up with 3 adjectives for how I wanted my life to look. And they're still the same. It's free, independent, secure. And I use that as my North Star instead of
Mhm.
any financial number. I have spreadsheets figuring out exactly how much I need to make to support my lifestyle, but I really focus on what's enough, not just a number for a number. I think a lot of women are focused on having $1 million business because it feels good and that sounds like success, but I don't need to make $1 million a year. That's not what I need to sustain my life. And I'd rather have more time to hang out with my kid when he wants to hang out with me on the rare occasions when he does. I want to have time to travel. I've been traveling a lot since my divorce. I took a really big 3-week trip with my son and my boyfriend over the summer that was just the best. I want to have spaciousness. I want to enjoy myself. I want to work with women who light me up and I want to help them thrive in their own lives. And that's what's exciting to me. And so just trying to look at my life more holistically instead of just thinking about numbers for success has been really important to me.
Yes. I love looking at the adjectives. That's a really interesting way, but I think can be really powerful because, like you said, the money aspect is clearly still important because we need money to be able to live out those goals and those dreams and that
Mhm.
version of success. It's still very important, but not focusing everything on that, right? When you more focus on what do you actually want, that will come, that will be a part of it. So,
What I like too is it creates different pathways to reach the same goal. So if my goal is freedom and independence, right now that means investing in my business, but maybe at some point that means selling my house. There are different ways to get there. And so I like that too, where it's not just, I need to make this amount of money. It's like, this is how I want to feel. What are the different avenues to get there? And what makes the most sense for where I am right now in my life?
yes. Okay. So I have so many things I want to like sit down and do after this conversation. Okay. Anyways, Caitlin, if people want to work with you, if they are in dire need of a new brand and website, which you do fabulous, amazing work, where can they find you?
My website is, I bought this domain 20 some years ago before I knew better. Don't do this. Don't get a short domain, as short a domain as you get. My domain is liquidformdesign.com. So that's my website. My portfolio's there. I'd love it if you want to sign up for my newsletter. There's a link on my website for my newsletter. My newsletter started in April. I've been enjoying it so much. I talk a little bit about branding and websites, but I also talk about menopause and midlife and working parenthood and just whatever I'm thinking of, what podcasts I'm listening to,
Love it.
all the things. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you again, Caitlin, for being here. I always enjoy talking with you.
Hailey, it was so fun. Thank you so much for having me.